Hello everyone, how's it going? My name is Dan the Tutor. Today we're going to be looking at a comprehensive guide to how to factor for Algebra 1. This is probably the single most important math skill to have from Algebra 1 to Calculus, whatever. If you don't know how to factor, you're at an extreme disadvantage for the next 5 years of your math career. So first, I want to explain what I'm talking about today. When we factor, it's usually because we have something like ax squared plus bx plus c. Maybe you've seen this form before. Basically, a, b, and c can be any numbers, like for instance, 2x squared minus 5x plus 10. This is an example of ax squared plus bx plus c. This is when we can try factoring. A lot of times you'll also see this equal to 0, and we'll explain what that means later today. But the first thing I want to say is that the problems we're looking at today, A is always going to be 1. This is the easiest case, and what this basically means is that every problem we look at, whether it's x squared plus 99x minus 1000, the first number in front of the x squared is a 1, which you don't have to write because anything times 1 doesn't matter, so I'm not even going to write the 1. And these are the easiest problems to factor for, and you'll see why. So let's start with the first one I have, which is x squared plus 4x plus 3. Now when I look at a problem like this, and the question is, how do you factor this? The first thing I'm thinking is, what are the factors of 3? And 3 is easy because there's only one pair of factors. You got 1 and 3. That's it. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm thinking. The second thing I'm thinking is I see this plus sign right here, and that means that these two numbers have to add together. If that was minus 3, then it would be subtract. But since it's plus, they will add together. And they have to add up to positive 4. Add up to positive 4. And so this is one of the easiest questions we can have because it's only one pair of factors, 1 and 3. We know we're adding them, and we know 1 plus 3 does in fact equal our middle number, 4. So in other words, I'm going to write this. You basically write this every time, guaranteed. Parenthesis x, close parenthesis, parenthesis x, close parenthesis. The thing that changes every time is the thing that goes in the middle. And like we said, I already know what goes here. Plus 1 for the first one, plus 3 for the second one. Now the nice thing is the order of this doesn't matter. For instance, you could have put x plus 3 times x plus 1. That's the exact same thing. And both will work. By the way, a way you can always check your answer with factoring is by foiling. Like x times x is x squared. 3 times x is plus 3x, x times 1 is plus 1x, and then 3 times 1 is plus 3. And you'll see I get x squared plus 4x plus 3, which was my original problem, which means you can always check your work with factoring just by doing the opposite, foiling. So let's go ahead and look at another example that's a little bit harder. Let's say I have x squared plus x minus 6. So once again, the first thing I do is I ask myself, what are the factors of 6? We got 2 pairs today. We got 1 and 6, and we got 3 and 2. Those are my 2 pairs of factors. And since this is a minus sign right there, I know the numbers have to subtract, and I want them to subtract to positive 1. Because even though the 1 wasn't there originally, I know if there's not a number there, then it's 1. So for instance, 1 minus 6 is negative 5, so it's not that one. And 3 minus 2 is 1, so it's that one. Okay? So I know it's going to be the 3 comma 2. And now I'm going to write the same thing I always do. Parenthesis x, just like this. And then the thing that goes in the middle this time is a positive 3 and a negative 2. Because I want positive 1. And 3 minus 2 is positive 1. And this is going to be correct. This is good for factoring. And by the way, let's say hypothetically, I wanted, instead of plus x, I wanted minus 1x. Well, then it would just be the opposite. It would be negative 3 and positive 2. And then that way you get to minus 1. So you always have to think a lot with these problems. But once you get the hang of it, they're not that bad. Okay, let's look at another one. Let's see if you can even try this one on your own. It's x squared minus 2x minus 48. Go ahead, try it on your own. You can pause the video. I will continue though. So first, the factors of 48. We got 1 and 48. You got 2 and 24. It's also divisible by 3. It's 3 and 16. We've got 4 and 12. and we've got 6 and 8. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of factors. And by the way, you may be asking yourself right now, what if I didn't know all 5 factors? Well, you don't need to know all 5, although it helps, but you just need to know the ones that will subtract to negative 2. So for instance, 1 minus 48 is negative 47. That's not going to work. 2 minus 24, negative 22. 3 minus 16, negative 13. 4 minus 12, negative 8. And 6 minus 8, negative 2. Bingo! That's the one I want because it needs to subtract to negative 2. So then that means it's going to be parenthesis x, parenthesis x. And what goes in the middle this time is negative 8 plus 6. And once again, you can mix up the order. You can put x plus 6 times x minus 8. And that's the exact same thing. Both answers work. And one more time, if you want to check your answer, you would just have to FOIL this, which I always recommend doing, especially for those of you who are new to factoring, or at least not good at it yet. Okay, let's look at another one now. I've got x squared minus 9x plus 8. So first, I need to think of the factors of 8. There are 2 pairs. We got 1 and 8, and 2 and 4. You'll notice it's a plus, so they need to add together, and they need to add up to negative 9. So I look at 1 plus 8, and that's positive 9, but I went negative 9. So here's the hardest part about factoring. It's this case right here where you add them up, but you get a negative number. The reason for this is because it's not positive 1 and positive 8. You are going to add negative 1 plus negative 8, which gets you to negative 9. I know that's confusing, but that's what you need to do. In other words, both are negative this time. So it's going to be parenthesis x, it'll be minus 1 and minus 8. And if you don't believe me that this is the right answer, then let's FOIL this out. X times x is x squared, negative 1 times x is minus 1x, x times negative 8 is minus 8x, and negative 1 times negative 8 is plus 8. So we get x squared minus 9x plus 8. And there's our answer. So for the next one, we're going to do something different. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's say I have x squared plus 3x minus 18 equals 0. Whenever you have it set equal to 0, this is when I want to solve for x. And this is basically why it's so important that we want to factor in the first place. Basically, the reason why we have factoring is to solve for x. Why do we care so much about solving for x? Well, one, because in algebra, that's like the biggest question they ever ask you, solve for x, so that's a pretty good reason. So basically, even if you don't understand, solving for x is an extremely important skill to know in math, and whenever you have x squared like this, we should try factoring. So the good news is, it starts out exactly the same. The factors of 18 are 1 and 18. You've also got 2 and 9, and you've also got 3 and 6. Now since this is minus 18, I want the numbers to subtract to positive 3. 1 minus 18 is negative 17. 2 minus 9 is negative 7. 3 minus 6 is negative 3. So it's probably the opposite. It's probably positive 6 and negative 3 because 6 minus 3 is positive 3. So that's what I'm going to write. I'm going to write plus 6 and minus 3. And now what I'm going to do different from before is I'm going to set this equal to 0 and solve. Now here's what solving looks like. Let me show you first the shortcut and then the long way, and then we can just do the shortcut from here on out. But basically, you just say the solutions are x equals negative 6 and x equals positive 3, and you're done. And if you want to know why you choose the opposite number as in the parentheses, here's why. If you want to solve this, x plus 6, you set that equal to 0, and then you set x minus 3 equal to 0 separately. You would want to subtract 6 from both sides. You get x equals negative 6, which is that answer right there. And then here you'd add 3 to both sides, and you get x equals 3, which is that answer right there. So that's why we're doing the opposite. And will it always be the opposite? Yes, as long as you have these simple x plus 6 and x minus 3. If you have something crazy like 2x minus 5, well, the answer is not so simple anymore. But we're not talking about this case yet. Okay, so let's just do a couple more of those. Again, if you want to try any of these on your own, just go ahead and pause the video and try it. And then you can unpause the video to see if you get the right answer. So for this one, the first thing I would say is it's 28. So that breaks up into 1 and 28. You've got 2 and 14. You've got 4, and 7, and that's it. So remember, it's a plus sign here. That means they want to add to positive 11. So 1 plus 28, 29. 2 plus 14 is 16. And 4 plus 7 is 11, so it must be the 4 plus 7. So x plus 4 times x plus 7 equals 0. So then when we're solving for x, you just say the opposite. X equals negative 4, comma, x equals negative 7, and that's all you need to do. And by the way, if you're curious what these answers mean, it means if you plug in negative 4, for instance, into this equation, and it would look like this. If I plug in negative 4, it would be negative 4 quantity squared plus 11 times negative 4 plus 28. We're saying this equals 0 when you plug in negative 4 for x. And that makes sense because negative 4 squared is positive 16. 11 times negative 4 is minus 44. And then plus 28, that doesn't change. And if you plug this in a calculator, you will get 0 equals 0. So yes, this works. Another way you can check your answer with these factoring problems. And now let's just do one more. Let's say I have x squared minus 7x plus 10 equals 0. Again, you probably already know what to do, so go ahead and pause the video and try it on your own first. And once you're done, you can check your answer. So the factors of 10 are 1 and 10, and 5 and 2. I know since it's positive here, they have to add, but they have to add to a negative number. Remember, this is the case where both numbers will be negative. So 1 plus 10 is 11, not that one. 5 plus 2 is 7, that sounds right. But again, it needs to be negative 5 and negative 2, and it will look like this. X minus 5 times x minus 2 equals 0. And then to get the solutions, we just say the opposite. So x equals positive 5 and x equals positive 2. And there are our answers for today. So that's a brief guide to factoring, at least if you're starting out. There's a lot more problems we can do, but this is just a very beginner kind of thing. I'll probably explain in a later video how to solve harder factoring problems. But until then, I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.